Mike Schreiner.
Bonjour tout le monde. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm speaking to you from the Treaty 13 lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and just want to reaffirm the Ontario Green Party's commitment to the truth and reconciliation process, and also express my gratitude for all that I've learned from Indigenous peoples about how to care for the land, the water, the plants, and the animals, and the people who live here. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Margaret Prophet, the Executive Director of the Simcoe County Greenbelt Coalition and a leading advocate against the Holland Marsh Highway. The Holland Marsh Highway, or as some like to call the Bradford Bypass, is a climate and economic disaster. It would slice through the Greenbelt, pave over 42 acres of the Holland Marsh, destroy 96 acres of wildlife habitat, and 25 acres of provincially significant wetlands. We've already paved over 75% of the wetlands in Southern Ontario. It would contaminate groundwater and would further pollute Lake Simcoe, which is already extremely fragile and at severe risk. It would increase flood risk and would pump 87 million kilograms of climate pollution into the air each and every year at a time when we're facing a climate emergency. And most of the locals in the region don't even want the highway. According to a poll from Lake Simcoe Watch, only 29% of local voters support the project, while 48% oppose it and 23% are undecided. Locals know how important protecting the health of Lake Simcoe is. 64% of the plants and animals in Lake Simcoe may already be affected by salt contamination, and the lake will reach toxic levels in 37 years at the current trajectory. And despite all of this, Doug Ford is insisting on bulldozing ahead with this damaging highway that the Toronto Region Board of Trade estimates will cost $1.5 billion. According to some reports, construction can begin as soon as next month. Ford has already started evicting people from homes along the highway route. Transportation Minister Mulroney said they're full steam ahead. And in an extremely disappointing move, the federal Liberals gave the highway the green light for Doug Ford to pave over this sensitive area, not once, but a second time just a few weeks ago. You know what? The federal Liberals and the provincial Conservatives won't stand up for the environment. The Ontario Greens will. We're committed to protecting 25% of Ontario land and water by 2025 and 30% by 2030. Protecting fragile and vital ecosystems like Lake Simcoe. We need to stop this highway now. We know there are alternative transportation options that would be less environmentally damaging and, quite frankly, less expensive, which the Ministry of Transportation outlined in a 2014 report. More highways and expensive sprawl that bulldozes wetlands, poisons water, and pumps climate pollution into the air is not the answer. We need more transit options, and we need to build livable, affordable communities that protect nature instead of destroying it. Communities where people can live, work, play, and shop, and where people are not forced into unaffordably long commutes. I'd now like to pass the floor to Margaret Prophet, Executive Director of the Simcoe County Greenbelt Coalition. Thank you, Margaret, for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Mike. Hi, everyone. Of course, Mike, I want to thank you for your persistence and care about this issue, and for giving me the platform to discuss the Holland Marsh Highway today, or the Bradford Bypass. Despite what some of you may want to believe, the concerns about this Greenbelt Highway are driven by local people who live in the regions directly affected. As such, today, I'm not just representing Simcoe County Greenbelt Coalition, but I'm the voice for several resident-driven organizations who are spearheading this call to action to stop the Bradford Bypass. And the opposition to this highway and its flawed process has grown increasingly as more is known, and Mike mentioned the polling. This opposition is evidenced by over 20,000 residents of Ontario who have signed petitions, 63 NGOs from across Ontario, and 7 local municipalities who all agreed that this highway needs better study before it's too late. And while some people may just see this as another highway project for the people of Simcoe and York Region and those who love Lake Simcoe, it is representative of a project that lacks vision, evidence, and steals hope that our tomorrow will be better than our today. In 37 years, it is estimated that Lake Simcoe will have toxic salt levels. The main source is urbanization and roads. We want to ensure that our local economy that is highly reliant on tourism and recreational fishing has a fighting chance. A highway within the source waters of the lake that will spew salt into its sensitive wetlands, biodiverse habitats, and only add unnecessary stress to a lake that is ailing is a concern for many in our region. And what hope is there in a highway? Traffic engineers will tell you straight that congestion won't be fixed by this highway or any highway for that matter. Climate scientists are telling us we need to stop building fossil fuel infrastructure and preserve all the wetlands and carbon sinks we have if we're to stand a chance of a livable planet for future generations. Wars and breakouts that are happening in Ukraine are telling us that our desire for oil and Earth's resources need to be calmed if we are ever to achieve peace. Healthcare professionals are telling us our healthcare system needs significant investments as our population ages and pandemics become the norm. And as Mike mentioned, the Toronto Region Board of Trade has pegged this at 1.5 billion. A Toronto Star article had an independent auditor peg it at 2.2 billion. The fact is, we don't really know what it's going to cost because MTO just recently met with York Region and were asked directly, what is the budget for this? And they said, we don't know yet. So how does a highway in the Greenbelt's Holland Marsh near an ailing lake that is in the crown jewel of Ontario provide hope for future generations? For those that are aged and need supports, we need a full study of this highway and a budget. Right now, with exemptions on record, construction on parts of this highway will start within months. We are going in blind without a budget, without full studies, and without any consideration for our climate and for Lake Simcoe or any alternatives, as Mike mentioned. There is no hope in this highway, just destruction and costs. And this isn't a vision that I want, and I don't think it's an agenda that Ontario wants either. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you. We'll now open the floor to media questions. So I would ask that you use the raise hand function if you have a question, or if you can't find that, just message in the chat. I see a hand up from Adam Donaldson from Golf Politico. Adam, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thank you, Darren. Question to Margaret. I think there's some concern that this is a kind of a very active issue for people who are worried about environmental concerns and sprawl and things like that. This has not quite trickled down to your quote unquote man or woman on the street. I guess how do you and the groups you represent kind of intend to make this right through to an election issue, give it that kind of level of prominence, given everything else that's going on?
Well, I don't think we need to make it an election issue because Doug Ford, sorry, my phone's going out the background. Sorry about that, hold on. I apologize, so unprofessional. I forgot to unplug my phone. Doug Ford has made the highways an election issue. So, when we're talking about costs, we're talking about billions of dollars that are potentially spent. And what people care about is that they know that they're going to be taken care of. They want to know that their family's going to be taken care of. They want to know their schools are safe. They want to know that there's going to be investments made so that their tomorrow is brighter. And I think that when you start to frame it of, do you want billions of dollars spent on a highway, or would you rather have that put into long-term care, into safe schools, into more nurses and hospitals? I don't think many people would say, yes, build the highway and let's figure out how to siphon money from those other things to ensure that, there's more cars on the road. So that's how we look at it. And when we talk to people locally, that is what they feel too, that they want to know that their tomorrow has a little bit of a brighter hope with it. And this highway doesn't do that. It's never done that. Who gets really excited about a highway? Who gets excited about pavement? No, people want vision. They want to know their lake is protected, that their kids will be able to swim in the lake in future years, that there's going to be a fishing industry for all the ice hut operators and all that sort of thing. That's the kind of thing they want. And I think bringing it down to the cost and the destructive nature of the highway is what turns this into an election issue.
And Adam, if you don't mind, I'd like to just address that from a provincial standpoint. Is, Highway 413 has received a lot of media attention, and rightfully so. It's a much larger project, and there is significant opposition from local elected councils. And I think because of that, the Holland Marsh Highway hasn't received the same level of attention. And it's one of the reasons we're doing this news conference today with Margaret, is to bring a larger provincial lens on just how destructive this highway will be. Also to highlight the fact that local voters don't support it, and to really be clear with people. This has been framed as a bypass. This is a 400 series highway that's going to go through the Greenbelt, through provincially significant wetlands, and put significant risks to Lake Simcoe. This is much bigger than a bypass. This is a 400 series highway. The 2014 master transportation, the plan outlined a number of alternatives that would be far less expensive, far less destructive, and address the transportation concerns in the region.
Great. Yes, thank you, Darren. I guess this one's directed to you, Mike. Just, in the last week, we've had the announcement of the removing of tolls on 412 and 418, the cancellation of renewal fees for license plate stickers. You're still fighting the Highway 413 here. Do you think that the message that the Ford government is going to be rolling with in the election is more roads, more driving, versus, I guess, the alternatives you and people in the environmental activist community want to talk about?
Well, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a stark choice in the next election. There's going to be Doug Ford's destructive highway agenda that's going to make life less affordable for people, because it's going to force people to commute longer distances to be able to find an affordable place to live. Or there's the Green Party's vision, which is to build livable, affordable, connected communities where people can live, work, play, and shop close to home, where they can live more affordable and, quite frankly, higher quality of life in the communities they want to live in. Or there's the other two opposition parties that are somewhere in between, kind of playing footsie with the premier on his license sticker gimmick, for example. And so, this is an opportunity for Ontarians to vote for the future they want, the kind of communities they want to build. And the Ontario Greens, we're ready to provide the leadership to build that better Ontario.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a question in the chat from Natasha Philpott from Bradford Today. I'll read it out. Margaret, this one might be best for you, but Mike, feel free to jump in. Is the Lake Simcoe Watch poll the only reference used when claiming locals don't want this highway? Are there any plans to repoll people and or expand the pool of responders? How was the poll distributed?
Right. First off, it wasn't our poll. So as far as how the poll was distributed, you best to go to Lake Simcoe Watch particularly for their procedure, how they went through it. Yes, the poll, as far as the how people don't want it locally, is the only official poll. Anecdotally, when we do door knocking, when we host events, when we talk to people in the community, increasingly we are seeing quite a shift. So that's not poll based, but the mood is changing in a lot of our communities around the lake, around this highway. And as far as another poll, not really sure. They're very expensive to do. You're talking about a lot of volunteer organizations that are running this this campaign. So at this point, we don't have any plans, but maybe.
Thank you. Just a reminder, any other questions, please use the raise hand or message in the chat. Don't see any other questions right now. Mike, maybe just back to you quickly.
Yeah, Margaret, once again, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for your tireless efforts to engage and mobilize people in your community to protect Lake Simcoe in particular, but to also expand the Greenbelt and to place stronger protections on the Greenbelt and just the vital sensitive ecosystems in and around the region. And you have the Ontario Greens commitment that we're going to continue to work with citizen organizations and environmental organizations to build a more affordable future and livable future for people, rather than Doug Ford's expensive, destructive, pro-highway, pro-sprawl, pro-pollution agenda.
Mike, I think your vision is great, and I wish that the vision wasn't partisan. I think it's a vision. I think it's a vision, and we believe that this is an issue that is pan-partisan. So we believe everybody should be fighting for a livable future. So thank you, Mike, for this.